Welcome to the Landscaping Podcast. My name is Joel Barnett and I'm your host. And in today's episode, I'm talking with Chris England from Merrywood Plants. And Merrywood specialise in espalier plants. And it's pretty cool hearing how Chris started out the business just as a hobby, having plants at his folks' place, and then ended up selling them at a nursery. And then the demand for them grew. And 25 years ago, he started the business and been going strong ever since. And it was fascinating talking to him and listening to all the different plants that he grows, then that you can espalier. And he's starting to do cloud pruning as well and shaping things on steel to get it to grow in all sorts of interesting shapes. So I loved talking to him about all the different things that he's doing. And I reckon it's a hidden gem as well, using espaliered plants. Like in the chat, we talk about using it like down the skinny side of a house, whereas a lot of times we'll just put a climber on the fence to green it up and reduce the size, but there's so many more options you can use. So loved hearing about all that. And also liked hearing about the first couple of nurseries that he worked for, the value that those employers put on knowing how to talk to people and the importance of being good people. And that has rubbed off onto Chris as well. So he learned that and has carried that through. And that can't be more highly recommended as well. There's good things happen to good people. I absolutely love chatting with Chris. So hopefully you enjoy this chat with Chris England. Chris, thank you very much for joining us on the Landscaping Podcast. My first question for you is, how did you start in the industry?
I started actually. I worked on an orchard in Warrandyte back in one of my first jobs, and as that went along, that was horticulture. Then I uh, got a bit tired of that, and I started doing a course at Burnley, Advanced Certificate in Horticulture back in the day, and enjoyed it. And then I just started trying some espaliered plants. I must have seen them somewhere, and it was just a hobby. I did like 5 or 10 of them, and you could sell things at the cool store in Warrandyte, and they sold. And I go, okay. So I did some more. Then I got into citrus and did some more. And we owned a 5 acre place, and I started putting the plants on the horse arena down the back of a property. I did 50, 100, 200, and it just kept ticking over. Then I left the orchard and went to work for Beasley's nursery. Neil Beasley's fantastic, got me really into horticulture. Great guy, taught me a lot of things, how to say hello to people and talk to people, which is, you didn't do much of that on the orchard. Then I moved down the peninsula, went and worked at Linton's nursery. So another great nursery with Michael Linton. Again, just high end, knowing good quality people. Then I started doing garden maintenance, and the nursery kept bubbling along really well. And eventually things just took off. Gill's nurseries back in the day were quite big. They bought a lot of Sophie came down and bought like all my, she was the manager at the time, came and bought all my citrus, the spaliers. I go, okay. So then I moved to my mum and dad's place again down at Shoreham at 5 acres, started on that and filled that. And then it really taken off. I stopped at Linton's, I stopped my gardening, I just went into the nursery and it just kept going. Then we bought a place down at Baxter on 5 and 10 acres and it just kept going. And yeah, it's great fun, the industry. I seen some great nurseries and it just kept snowballing. And to the day, really, you say business has been going for 25 years this year, and it's been a hobby for 30, 35 years. And it's still enjoying it, still love being outside, working with plants, networking with landscapers, retailers, trying to push our product, which we do. But yeah, that's a bit of the journey with us.
Yeah, I love that story that there were people actually have a hobby that becomes their career, like that, because that's the
Yeah,
same as what like mine. Like it wasn't a hobby to start with, but I love landscaping like it's a
yeah,
hobby, and it also costs as much as one sometimes. But it's good.
yeah.
It's good that you actually have found something you love doing, and then you've been able to make a living out of it. So, was there any challenges when people were wanting to buy stuff? Because espaliering is it, yeah, it's not something that you can just happens overnight. So was there ever a challenge where people wanted to buy stuff and you just had to wait for it to grow and start espaliering?
Oh, that's always a challenge. You growing plants with the summers we've had the last 4 summers with the wet summers is, oh my goodness, it's probably the last 4 years has been more tricky because it's more back in the day, like 20, 15 years ago, you had hot summers. The last 4 years we've had wet summers, and it's citrus love hot summers. And I know we all hate hot summers, but citrus just haven't grown enough the last, say, 3, 4 years. So that's probably the biggest challenge. It's learning every season is different and every plant does not grow the same. And as an espalier, you want it to grow very formal, very even, but that doesn't happen. So we're learning when we're clipping plants and stuff like that, you just have to be wary of how that plant looks and treat it nearly one. I know it sounds terrible, 10,000 espaliers, but you've got to treat one a little bit what it tells you to do and run with it. Yes, there's bugs that come at certain times of years, growth patterns, there's feeding, watering. It's a challenge, but we're learning to adapt to all that as you do with a bit of climate change happening. But yeah, it's been a lovely ride. I still enjoy it.
Yeah, I think like saying that you got to do what the plant tells you to do makes perfect sense because if you're trying to fight against what nature is trying to do, then it's going to take longer than just sort of encouraging it to go in a certain direction. So it
Oh,
makes perfect
definitely.
sense.
Yeah.
So what sort of plant? You said you start off with citrus, was it? And what other plants were you doing to start with?
Oh, mainly citrus because we've thought about the fruit thing and people want to grow that in the backyard. But that just evolved. We went into fruit trees, apples, pears, plums, quinces, all range of citrus. Then we went into camellias, ornamentals, flowery and fragrant things like gardenias. Then you start being bizarre and grow things like ginkgos and crab apples and oh my goodness, olives, of course. It just snowballed. And what I keep saying you can espalier anything and everything. Some things work, some things don't. Like I've tried some natives and they work, but they sort of didn't sell. So it's a little bit torturing them. I've tried waratahs, which are my favorite flower, and they work, but then so yeah, so it's, you can do a lot of different things. Some I try not to because I know they don't work, but I'm always open to suggestions. I love people give me, hey, Chris, try this or try that. And it's always a bit of fun trying to do that. And maybe 2 years later it might work. But yeah, so there's lots of different things you can try.
And is there anything where people like do contract growing where they want something a particular plant?
I, I do a little bit. I've done a bit for Paul Bangay. Some of the longer jobs, which they give me a little lead time. I'd love to do more. It's exciting. And that really big olive we had 2 years ago at Mifkus, that was, you could say that's a contract growing job. It took 4 years to get to there. That was fun that was yeah, really good, interesting thing to do that. And I saw the post the other day from Semken. It's actually down in Geelong in situ, but it's looking as gorgeous as it was 2 years ago at the flower show. So yeah, yeah, it's comes and goes. It don't do a lot, but yeah, it is what it is. I understand that.
Yeah, that one at Mifkus 2 years ago, I think it was a Vivid design. So that was that four olives, and then it had the circular window in the middle between them.
Yeah, it's Caroline Blackman and Joby. They designed it and had four separate boxes, four separate olives. Semcom welded the whole frame up, and I just grew it. And the first year it wouldn't have been ready. So the COVID actually helped it make it grow.
Yeah.
And by the fourth year, actually, they did they finally touched like that in the Sistine Chapel. They touched, and I'm going, oh my god, it actually worked. And it was, maybe it was meant to be. I don't know, but if it was 4 years before, it probably wouldn't have looked as good.
Yeah.
But it did look. It just popped. That was probably the most biggest thing we've probably ever done. And the whole journey through that, we'll call journeys. That was fun with Carolyn. She's a great person to work with, and yeah, can't doubt her energy as well. So
Yeah.
it's fantastic.
What sort of work do you do in making them grow quicker? Like, do you water them every day, or add anything other than just sort of nature to make them grow quicker?
It's good quality potting mix. Start with good quality potting mix is really important in pots. Having good feed in the pots for good osmocotes and stuff. There is liquid feeding you do. I'm starting to do a lot of that now at the back end of summer, where the plants have got to a nice point. They're starting maybe just go a little citrus, go a little bit yellow. Start doing a lot of foliar feeding, a lot of liquid feeding to do that, just to keep them really happy and healthy. Talking to the plants, no, you do that, but typical gardener. No, yeah, it takes a bit of work, especially this back end of summer. You do a lot of watering. At the 39 degrees on Saturday. You're watering 3 times a day, and then you might put some sprinklers on, and you do a bit of hand watering when the plants, older plants, which aren't getting enough. But yes, but if you, I suppose over the time we've been doing it, you understand how a plant will react to weathers and stuff. And yeah, it's a good time, but citrus hit a real energy spot. And I did that about a few weeks ago. They're all growing fantastically, and it's great to see. And that nice new foliage which comes out, you've got everything right. It's good to see that.
And will you sort of trim off any flowers as they come on the citrus so that it puts more energy into the growth, or do you just sort of let it go and just trim it when it needs
Depends
to?
on the stage that espalier citrus is at. If it's on a really big lattice and it's still full, I'll let them flower. And that's what a spalier is supposed to do. But regardless, it is supposed to slow plants down and produce more flowers and fruit. Most young plants, like 2 or 3 years old in a espalier, they got full of growth. They don't have flowers. But the following season, they will, because that's what a espalier does. You're slowing the plant down. So I've got some big 50 centimeter espalier lemon eurekas. They're flowering. They've got some fruit. And that's what people love to see, just the fruit on them. So certain times, yes, you do cut some off. And if it's got too much fruit, you cut them off. But when they're full and all you want them to do is that's a selling point. People love to see a selling point, espalier plants with fruit on. And I've got some great ones, some oranges and mandarins at the moment with fruit on, which won't colour up until winter, but that's what helps sell our product, definitely.
Yep, yeah, we put some camellias in on a Paul Bangay project that came from you, and yeah, that like seeing the flowers on them is phenomenal. How good they look compared to just a green leaf plant. Flowers make it
Yeah,
really pop out.
it works.
Yeah. So what specifically is the fertilizer that you use on them?
It's just an Osmocote where we use in the mix. It's probably 6 to 9 months. Plus, we do have a 12 to 18 months. So something which picks it up short term early, and then because some of the plants are in the pots nearly over 2 years, you need a back end or something like that. And I think there's probably 6 to 8 kilo per cubic meter of Osmocote in that mix. So it's an expensive mix, but that really helps. So we use BioGrow and Pine Grow down in Warragul. They help me get that mix right. We do have a citrus mix and a camellia mix. So the camellia mix is a little bit different in the way it's structured for a camellia, how way it grows, because they do like that. So we don't play around with lots of different types of mixes, but it's having that good stuff in there, good bark, good compost and stuff like that. Important.
Yeah, yeah, I found it fascinating when I first heard that there's no actual soil in the potting mix. It's all that's why they call
Yeah,
it soil media because it's
yeah.
all potting media. Sorry.
That's certainly one thing you learn when you go to school at Burnley. You don't have soil in pots because you'll drown them,
Yeah,
basically. So it's all good. It's a learning curve.
yeah, it's the same. Like we've done, like when we have had a plant we're going to put in, or might have been changing a plant, but we would have the soil we'd put into the garden beds on a job, and then like if we're digging out another one, we want to put it into a pot. Like when you put the garden bed soil in there and then water it, you see that the water just doesn't drain through. So that's
Yeah.
why the potting mix is so much better for drainage for that reason.
Yeah. A lot of people have to understand that. It's still people still get it wrong. And anyway, you learn. It's a
Yeah.
learning
So that mix you get all mixed up by was a pine grow and bio.
grow. Yeah.
Yeah.
It comes in at like 8 meter cube load, gets dumped, and then we pot on from that. So that's all mixed up nicely, and the bark's all composted, so it kills all the weeds, and it's you say it's very sterile, but it's they do a good job.
And then what sort of size do you start with? Do you do any cuttings or any propagation yourself, or you just buy them in certain
I'm
size?
going to say I'm a terrible propagator. I don't propagate very well, so I never tried. So I've always started with a bit more an advanced plant, so a 20 centimeter pot, so 20 centimeter grafted citrus plant into a 33 or a 40 or a 50. And yeah, just find because I want that stock term we call it. I want to get that plant ready in a season. So if we plant all our plants generally in the winter months, and then we will hopefully to be ready by March, and then I sell from that into spring, from March till spring, which is that 6 month period. Then we start again. So you sell out and you start more plants. So that's you want the plant to be ready in a year. If I start from a tube, it just takes so much longer. And I've learnt by experience that it's just time. you'd be waiting 2 years rather than the 12 months. And it's good to see plants come and go. I love my plants, good plants to go to a really old plants you've been trialing and playing with for 5 years or something. It's to go to lovely homes. I say that, like the big olive went to a lovely home. And yeah, that's really important. Just that stock turn to move the plants through the nursery.
Yep. Have you got any big ones that you have been trying to get rid of that is still sitting there that haven't found the right project?
I've got a couple. There's again, I have had some contract growing plants that have been here for way too long, for 5 years. They're going this month down to Red Hill. There are some older ones, and I'm planting. If I don't sell them, I'm going to plant them up and grow them even bigger, just to get them more interesting. And whether I start doing things like some master classes at nursery to teach people about espaliering, that's something we're thinking about. Good in a garden sense, but having them in pots, which is bit keeps them uniform. And there are some doozy. I love people coming out here walking around, and we always try things. I've got a row down the back of the nursery where we're trying experimenting with ideas and shapes and sizes, and it's very hard to take photos of a spades. So it's really, you do need to come and have a look. And we live on property, so I'm always here, which is good and bad. And always to come and get some imagination to physically touch and see. Photos are great, but touching and feeling plants and looking at them at different angles is always a lot easier on site. And I encourage that for anybody to come and have a look.
Yeah, I loved seeing your display at the landscape show 2 years ago because that's when I saw the olives where you had two olives in a pot and then they were attached to just a steel rod that sort of curved up
Circle.
like a
Yeah.
teardrop. They combined
Yep.
together. So
Yep.
have you got some things like that where you're just creating different shapes to get it to grow on?
Yeah, we are doing a lot more of that Rio bar. We do some S-shaped ones. We're doing some circle tear-shaped ones, and it's again that's time. It's 2 years to fill that circle. But we've done on that circle, big circle. We're doing olives. We've done some wisterias. We've done ginkgos, a very a slimline ginkgo, camellias, bay trees, fruit trees on those circles. We're running with that idea. It's a very design point to find a spot in the garden that will work for that client, and it doesn't work for all clients. You've got to find that specific client, and I understand that, but you've got to have the plants there looking good, and sometimes they take time to grow. They don't fill up as quick as we want, so we have to hold on to things, which is I'm learning as part of the cycle of growing plants.
Yeah, well, yeah, especially when you're growing advanced ones like you are, or semi-advanced, so you've got to have patience doing that.
Oh yeah, needs a lot of patience, and yeah, they sometimes do what you want, and sometimes they don't. But that's a growing thing as a trade nursery. That's what happens.
Yeah. So how has everything just sort of happened word of mouth, or have you sort of been actively contacting nurseries to let them know what you've got?
Oh, 20 years ago, back in the day, yes, there was a lot of running around. A lot of people didn't know what an espalier was, even though it's been around for, we'll say, 1,000 years, 500 years. It was pretty new to the idea, the concept. But yes, I did a lot of spec runs, and I went to Sydney Labor Day weekend for 10 years in a row to get the nurseries up there. And back in the day, it took a lot of time, but eventually it's word of mouth. And but the best thing with what they're doing with the building is they're building big houses on small blocks. And where do you grow your big plants anymore? You grow them on vertical surfaces, and that just evolved. And yes, there's still a push for townhouses, and that helps us because there's lots of vertical surfaces to fill, which is lovely. And I still think we've sort of reached a point, but we haven't. They keep doing that, and people still want to have that homegrown fruit, picking your own or the flowering stuff. And but then we do some properties, some out, people on acreage who want that big veggie garden, and they want some flat fruit where they don't have to. It's easy to net and not to worry about the birds, and they can train it. They can touch it right in front of their face. They don't have to go up a ladder and try and net the damn thing. So yeah, it's a lot of that, but it's been a good run.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. I hadn't thought of that about the benefits of using espalier for narrow spaces because a lot of the times they'll just put like a climber on the fence Yeah, you get so many more options with all the things that you espalier.
Yeah, well, it is, and it's not just very sunny spots. We are trying to get some shady stuff as well. There's a new hydrangea called Runaway Bride, which we're trying. I know it's a hydrangea, but it's for a very shady spot. But we do japonicas for shady spots. Yeah, it's challenging, and you keep trying to think of ideas and ways to show people where they can grow that, rather just not have a vacant fence, make it use of it, and absorb some heat on that plant, will absorb the heat from it going into the house, and that sort of climate sort of thing as well as benefits as that as well.
Mm. And if it's a fruit, it's going to love that too. Love the extra heat radiating around it.
It's a perfect opportunity for it.
Yeah. So do you send much stuff interstate? Like you went going to Sydney early days?
Yeah, a little bit. We do some retail nurseries in Sydney. Well, we send plants to really all over Queensland, New South Australia, and Tassie. Retail nurseries. We do stuff with some Bunnings stores as well, which helped us sort of grow as well. So they've been helpful. Sent plants, believe it or not, to a landscaper in Cairns this year, which is the furthest north they've been. That was amazing. So
What did you send up there?
citrus, olives, and star jasmine.
Did you
Three of
take it
the
up
things
there
that you
yourself
wanted.
just to spend an extra week up there?
I didn't go and visit, but it's a long road trip for a plant to go to Cairns, I believe it or
Yeah.
not. But no, that's the furthest north we've been. I have sent to Western stuff to Western Australia, but we don't anymore because the freight costs more than the actual plants, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah, but it's just getting known, just doing something different. Sometimes people like seeing different things, which is lovely, and hopefully, we can keep providing that plant which will suit that purpose.
Yeah, I love it because I love experimenting with different things as well. And like I said, like you've done, like the amount of different plants you've tried with it would just keep it interesting as well as being profitable, hopefully.
Yeah, oh, it does. That's what keeps you going. It keeps you, oh, how about I try this? Or how about I do something different? Yes, you got to do your stock standard general lines of citrus and stuff, but doing a different espaliered shape, like an apple or pear and a candelabra or a palmette and stuff. We actually went to France last year and went to Versailles and the pottage of which you walk down to, and things which are 200 years old. You see that and you go, well, I've been done this for 25 years. That's nothing.
Yeah.
So you get, okay, it does work. So you think of a new shape you can try. Oh, I can try this, and I'll see a photo of in Pinterest or something. Oh, I'll try that, and it takes years, but it just evolves and it works. It's fun.
Yeah, when you see advanced ones, they're just insanely impressive. Like there's one in Ocean Grove on like a main road, and it's planted on a brick fence. So I'm pretty sure it might be. I can't remember if it's facing northeast, um, but yeah, it's on the plant is on the corner of a brick fence, and then it goes both ways, so it's like 90
Oh, I love
degrees.
it.
Yeah, I don't know if it's a pear or an apple, but it looks phenomenal. Even when it's got no foliage on there, it looks awesome just because of the structure of it. Because
Yeah.
um, yeah, so maybe it's not one of them because I don't think they're deciduous, are they?
Oh, well, there's certain plants, but that person must have a love of it
Yeah,
to train it.
yeah,
And that's just time and patience and knowing how to prune plants. And one thing we're going to is summer pruning is just quintessential. It has to happen for us on espalier plants in summer. You can't just do it once. You need to do it 2 or 3 times in summer. And that's all the training you need to do to train it and tell it where to go. And you really don't do much winter pruning on espaliers. You do it all in summertime.
oh, it makes sense because that's when it's going to be actually growing. So are you sort of cutting off anything that's not where you want to get to head?
If it's on like a flat ladder stuff, we train nearly every shoot we get in the first few years. Set the plant up, making it look lovely. And if you catch that shoot when it's quite pliable, quite young, it's easy to do. But if you leave it till it hardens off, yeah, that sort of doesn't work. If I'm trading a shape, again, that young growth can be trained into different shapes or rounds or how I want it to do. But again, train it in summer, you can teach it where to go. It's teaching that shoot to go where you want. You're the boss of that plant. You're teaching it what you want it to do, and in that summer is the months to do it.
Yeah. And when you're buying your stock in, have you got relationships with where you buy the plants from that they'll send you specific plants, or do you go out and pick them and then sort of there's some that aren't suitable for it.
I'm very privileged to be able to go to some camellia growers. I'm going to name them. Andrew from Rhodoglen is a lovely guy. He lets me, Chris, just go for it. I don't see him for 4 hours. I'm there for the nursery, just picking out plants that I know will work.
Yeah.
Pinewood Nursery. So there's camellia growers, Humphreys Nurseries I go to as well. They're great out there. Camellias I like to pick out, which I can. All the bare root trees from Flemings and JFT and other growers, I don't have much say in. And the citrus, I don't have much say because I buy, a couple of thousand, 2 or 3 thousand citrus trees in winter. I can't go and pick them out. So
Yeah.
we deal with that as they come in. But certainly certain plants, which camellias, magnolias, some olives, I'm lucky to be able to go to some nurseries, and they don't offer that service very often. But over the timeline, you build up a reputation and a great friendship with them, and yeah, they let you come onto their property and pick them out.
Yeah, because that's going to save so much time is getting the right plant where it's already got, branches heading in the right directions or ones that you can train compared
Yeah,
to
definitely.
like
Yeah,
you said at the start, trying to force it to do what you want it to do.
yeah. That's one great thing with the camellias, especially, which have been able to get that shape working straight away, not waiting that extra. And it's all about time. I say it's time is energy and money, but getting that right first time, it's so much easier.
And what sort of pests and disease management do you do? Like, have you got any plants that sort of, like that attract the pests so they're not going towards your espalier plants, or what's the go with
Yeah,
that?
so we're full with IPM, which is integrated pest management. So I don't spray my really harmful chemicals and sprays. So we bring in good bugs to beat the bad bugs. So all your aphids, your caterpillars, your long-tailed mealybugs. Bugs for bugs. We're getting good little ladybirds and lacewings and predatory things and two-spotted mite. Persimilis to eat two-spotted mite and apples. We're really into that. We've got little pots around. We've got alyssum and marigolds and brachycomb, which help the beneficials, feed on things when they're not eating the bugs. Occasionally, having to spray a lot of pest oils to stop that citrus leaf miner, which is really bad at the moment. I'm doing that every 2 weeks. And if I have to do a spray, it's certainly it's beneficial. It helps with the not killing the good bugs. So we can use sprays now. A lot of chemical companies realize that you just can't spray those harmful chemicals, spray chemicals which will kill the bad bugs, but keep the nice bugs all happy. So that's really important to us, and it's good. We think it's great management for the staff. They're not touching all that sort of stuff because they're always touching the plants, and they don't have it to feel like they're really hurting, their fingers and stuff and touching their face. It's really good feeling to do that.
Yeah. And how many staff do you have?
Myself and my wife Jenny, we're always here. We've got about 4 or 5 sort of casuals, one part timer, Dan, who does all the delivering. He's quintessential of sending the plants out. And that's it. We keep a little bit under, I must admit. It's a little bit hard this time of year when everything is growing and going, oh dear, we're not going to get to all that. But we've got a great little group of men and girls, and actually now my 2 boys who are now 21 and 19, they actually help me in the nursery while they're doing all their sporting commitments. They're finally, it's an easy job for them because they can come and work for us and then go and do their gyms and their crickets and go to their whatever they need to do. So it suits them, but they're great workers. They do a good job too.
Can you see them working in it long term?
Unsure. It's up to them. And you don't want to push things on to young kids. It might evolve, and we'll see where that goes. Hard to tell. That's a tricky question. I'll give you that much. So we'll
Yep.
see where that ends up.
Yep. And so where do you see the business going, like being in 5 years compared to what you're doing now?
Just I suppose, trying to still create some nice, interesting shapes and sizes and things. Yeah, just to keep good contacts. And yeah, it's challenging at the moment. It is a bit quiet. There's tough times right now. We've had recessions before. We actually do well. COVID was amazing. Everyone stayed home and grew plants and wanted planting in the garden. So that was crazy. But just reinforcing what we do and, maybe getting out the road and teaching people what to do or helping people. I feel like sort of, I'll say the back end of my career, sort of really engaging with people and showing them more about how to help, how to train the plants and do more. And that in time will help others to talk to people and say, oh, we can do those plants on the walls. So yeah, just still growing quality plants. That's always a challenge. And you have to keep doing that by reputation. If you're not growing a good plant, you're not going to get that good sale. So just learning from my last 25 years of experience and keep doing the same, really, in a way.
Is there any plants you're trialing at the moment to see if they're going to work? Any new ones?
I've actually gone back to some of the old-fashioned plants, things like Gary elliptica, because it's just a tough old bloody plant, tough old plant, which some of the designers asked me to do. Some of the ginkgos, some of the slimline ginkgos, Piedmont pillar, and oh, I've got the other one. JFT do a lemon lime. They're very upright, and I'm trying to have fun with them. It's probably new plant releases, even though the Laura Petal and Plum Gorgeous, trying to make standards and sort of clouds out of that, which is quite bizarre, but it's fun. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's. I'm doing a few more topiary shapy things like that, which takes me away from my espaliers, but I complain about it, but then I go, actually, it actually sometimes is fun to do. But it always opens up to that next suggestion.
Yeah.
So, or something different, doing it a different shape or a different way. That's part of the fun of it, just keeping you interesting, I suppose.
Yeah, I would find it hard as well to not keep trialing different things like going into topiary like you've been doing because because you're waiting for the plants are growing at their speed and and you would have your staff who've got the espalier under control and then I'd be trialing different topiary stuff like you're doing. So because it started like a hobby, so it still is your passion. So I love that you're
Yeah,
doing it.
exactly. It maybe makes my life more interesting because I'm doing different things.
Yeah, yeah, that's good. Yeah, it's good that you can enjoy your job. So that's
Oh, you have to. If you're not enjoying your job, do something else. That's what I'm going to say.
yeah. Last question for you, Chris, is who do you think would be a good guest to have on the podcast?
Ooh, good question. I love you're going to a few trade nurseries. So anyone from someone like, and I don't know if you've had like Andrew from Warner's,
Yeah,
Andrew from Rotoglen. They're just people who got such great experience and knowledge of the plants they grow. I'm privileged he actually asked me to do this. So, but I suppose I go more down the trade plant route. So there's some great nurseries out there who, and some of the guys sort of around my age, have wealth of knowledge. And it's if you can tap into some of that, people who just do like well, we just do espaliers, but people who just grow really mainly camellias or fruit trees, and you can talk to some guys from JFT who do a lot of dwarf plants. I'd love you to know that journey if you've got time and seeing if they're willing to do it. Of course,
yeah.
we always are. We always love a chat. So it's always good.
Yeah, so speaking of those trade days, like is that how many of them do you go to a month? Because I know the NDGIV trade day, that's monthly, isn't it?
Yeah. So NGIV Nursery is the first Tuesday of every month at the KCC Dog Park in Skye. It's a great. Used to be a Caribbean Gardens, now it's at Skye. Every Tuesday, it's a great networking tool. We had it this Tuesday, and mainly based for retailers, but we do get some landscapers and florists and stuff come through. But it's great to network and show people what we've got. We have a little stand. It's like in a big enclosed aircraft hangar, and most of our nurseries go there. Trade nurseries go there, and I know Landscape Victoria do one every year now at Sandown or something like that. So I'll be there again this year. I try and go different ways. Yes, I sell to retail, but I also do landscaping. So I have to be aware that I get a different audience and I might show off different plants that I have there. So that's really great. It's for us, it's networking. I don't get out to see all the designers, landscapers, and to do that at one show, it's only for one day, but you hope to get a lot out of it.
Yeah, I reckon I couldn't recommend that more going to like the landscape show for it because there's a lot of people who contact me as a landscape builder, try use our pavers or whatever, and I always tell them that you need to talk to the designers because they're the ones who are deciding what goes into a design, and then
Yeah.
those landscapes we just pick what we just buy what they've decided to go in the plan. So, and I reckon there's a lot of designers who wouldn't know all the different things that you could do that with espalier and the different products that you sell. So, um, yeah, although you do sell to predominantly to retail nurseries, I reckon if you can get into landscape designers, so then they'll be specifying it more because there's so many different
Definitely.
products that you can use. It's just, yeah, just touching the surface, I reckon.
Yeah, and that's just making contacts, networks, talking to people, and that's getting known in the industry, and that's really important.
Yeah. Well, can't thank you enough for coming on, Chris. I absolutely love chatting to you. So, thank you very much, and looking forward to buying some of your products in the future.
All right. Yeah, thanks for the podcast. It was lovely. Good fun.